What if I told you aging isn't inevitable, that it's a disease that could be treated, slowed down, and maybe even reversed? I want you to meet Dr. David Sinclair. He's a Harvard professor who's dedicated his life to the science of aging.
You go to your doctor and they say, yeah, that's normal. You're old, you should be getting sick. And I said, that's not right.
So what happens in our bodies when we age? Why do our bodies grow weaker and our cells lose their ability to divide effectively? Well, one theory stated that we have these things called telomeres, and they shrink every time a cell in your body divides. Other people noticed that older bodies have a buildup of something called senescent cells, which are pretty much just zombie cells that don't know what to do anymore. They cause a lot of inflammation and have been linked to a number of diseases. There are a bunch of other indicators, but are these things the reason we are aging or just a symptom of our aging? Well, Dr. Sinclair thinks that's not why we age, because if we take an old animal and we clone it, which is something that modern medical science can do today, in most cases, the new clone will still live a normal, healthy lifespan. It won't come out with shorter telomeres or a bunch of senescent cells, which tells us that all the correct information to reproduce a young, healthy body is still inside the old animal. So why can't the old animal produce cells like it did when it was younger? If our genes still have all the correct information, why are we aging? Why do our cells start making mistakes like graying hair and memory loss, weaker bones? Well, Dr. Sinclair argues aging mainly happens in something called the epigenome. And if that sounds a little too technical, don't worry, it really isn't that complicated. Your genome has all the correct information that makes you, you. Everything that differentiates you comes from your genes. Now, your epigenome is in every single one of your cells and acts as a sort of on and off switch. It's the mechanism in your system that tells the cells, you're not going to be a liver cell, you're going to be a hair cell, you're going to be a skin cell. It tells the genes which parts of it should turn on and which parts of it should turn off. So the epigenome acts as a reader of sorts, and Dr. Sinclair argues that aging happens when our epigenome is damaged and the cells forget what they're supposed to do.
And that's important because if a skin cell needs to remain a skin cell, that's the epigenome. And if you don't have the epigenome, the skin cell will forget what type of cell it is, and it might turn into a brain cell, which may not be that bad, but if your brain turns into a skin cell, you've got a problem. And I think that's largely what aging is.
So can we take an 80-year-old man and fix his epigenome so his cells start reproducing in a way that would give him the body he had when he was in his 30s or 40s? Dr. Sinclair argues yes, and he calls this theory the information theory of aging. Check out these mice. Believe it or not, they are twins, but biologically, one is 50% older.
For 3 weeks, accelerated the scratches on the CD, we disrupted its epigenome, and the cells started to lose their identity. The mouse didn't feel it. It's like getting an X-ray, you don't feel that. But what happened 10 months later was we got an old mouse. This isn't just a mouse that looks old. This mouse is literally 50% older than its sibling, even though it's genetically identical. These are twins born at the same time. One is old and one is not.
So the question becomes, if we can do something to accelerate the aging process, will the opposite action reverse it? Now, theoretically, Dr. Sinclair says yes, but to explain why, I need to provide some context. Billions of years ago, bacteria essentially had two main functions. They would use their energy to either grow and replicate, or they would conserve their energy and repair. On a normal day, they would spend energy growing and reproducing, but when they were under stress for any reason, they would produce enzymes to protect their cells. Dr. Sinclair calls this the longevity gene, and today it can be found in all life. These longevity genes are in every single one of your cells, and they are there to sense when your body is under stress, when you haven't eaten, when you've run too much. These genes kick in to protect your cells, which also activate your body's natural defenses against aging.
We have 3 main sets of defenses. One's called mTOR, responds to fasting. One called AMPK, responds to low energy and lack of sugar. You want to keep your blood sugar levels low as possible without fainting. And the group of genes that I work on are called the Sirtuins, and they respond to all of the things that we do, the adversity, the exercise, the fasting. And this group of genes and these proteins that the genes make sense the environment, and when times are thought to be tough and could threaten us, they fight harder to keep our body safe, protected, and ultimately healthier and longer lived, even late in life.
So what can we do today to slow down our aging process? Now, before I get into this, a disclaimer. Before making any changes or trying anything that you see online, please consult a healthcare provider. Okay, with that out of the way, number 1, do not overeat and try to implement some sort of intermittent fasting.
And it's true for monkeys as well. There have been calorie restricted studies where these monkeys for 15 years didn't eat as much food as the ones that gorged themselves whenever they wanted. And they were protected. They didn't just age slower, they didn't get as much diabetes and heart disease. They were actually fit and healthy when the control group, eating whatever they wanted, aged and became sick quicker.
Like with all things in life, balance is necessary. Overeating on a regular basis is terrible for you, but we also shouldn't be starving ourselves either. Make sure you're still eating enough, getting healthy proteins, carbs, and fats. According to the research, the key is you want to give your body enough healthy fuel without overeating or eating too often. And again, consult a doctor before making any changes. Number 2, limit your sugar intake. Keep your blood sugar low at a healthy level. The calories that you do eat should be packed with nutrition. Number 3, exercise regularly and get your heart rate up on a regular basis. Number 4, put your body in a sauna or a cold room from time to time. Once again, we're tricking our body here into thinking it's under great stress, which will put us in that protective state. Number 5, avoid DNA damage. Put on sunscreen. Okay, you might be thinking, these things are all things that we pretty much already know. The question still stands. Can we reverse aging? Well, you might be surprised to know that we can already do it, kinda. To a point. Back in 2012, a man named Shinya Yamanaka won the Nobel Prize because he discovered how to reset the age of a cell. He found 4 factors that can turn an old cell back into an embryonic stem cell. And Dr. Sinclair says he's applied this knowledge and used it to reset the cells in a mouse's eye to cure its blindness.
So we put a gene therapy in the eye of old mice, turned their retinas to be young again, reversed aging in their retinas, so those 1-year-old mice went back to about 2 months, and guess what? Those mice could see again, just like they were young again. Does this mean one day if we reverse the age of the brain, you'll get your memory back? Possibly. We've done this now in mice. Old mice, we can rejuvenate their brain, take their brains back to half their age, and they get their ability to learn again.
So now the question is, how do we use this in human bodies and apply it to not just the one cell, but the trillions of cells in your body without turning you into a giant tumor? We're still a long way from reversing the age of a human being, but for the first time, we've got scientists making real breakthroughs in this area. And who knows, maybe aging will always be inevitable, but maybe if we do the right things, we can squeeze a few more healthy years out of the ones we love. Here's another video YouTube thinks you'll like, and before you click off, in this video I didn't really get the chance to dive into the ethics of reversing aging and its societal impacts, but I plan on exploring this more in the future, so be sure to subscribe and stay tuned for the latest, and as always, thank you so much for tuning in.